Elaine Quijano. Thank you for joining us. The 9th Democratic presidential primary debate is over. 6 candidates took the stage in Las Vegas, and the divisions among them appeared evident from the first question. In his first debate appearance of the 2020 cycle, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg faced attacks from every candidate on the stage. But it was Bloomberg who had the first attack of the night when he argued Senator Bernie Sanders could not defeat President Trump. Senator Elizabeth Warren then slammed Bloomberg for making sexist comments as a businessman. The former New York City mayor was also pressed on when he would release his tax returns. There were also criticisms of the health care plans of more moderate candidates on the stage, such as Senator Amy Klobuchar and former Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And Bernie Sanders faced tough questions and criticisms over the cost of his so-called Medicare for All plan. Here's some of what you may have missed.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
I think we need something different than Donald Trump. I don't think you look at Donald Trump and say we need someone richer in the White House.
In terms of who can beat Donald Trump, NBC did a poll yesterday. It says Joe Biden is best equipped to beat Donald Trump.
We shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out. Look, my campaign is fueled by hundreds of thousands of contributors,
including 46 billionaires. If there are a few people who make ugly remarks, who attack trade union leaders, I disown those people. They are not part of our movement.
Mayor Buttigieg really has a slogan that was thought up by his consultants. It's not a plan, it's a PowerPoint. And Amy's plan is even less. It's like a Post-it note, insert plan here.
I must say I take personal offense since Post-it notes were invented in my state.
It's not whether he apologized or not, it's the policy. The policy was abhorrent, and it was, in fact, a violation of every right people have.
If we took off everybody that was wrong on off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
I'm actually less concerned about the lack of transparency on Sanders' personal health than I am about the lack of transparency on how to pay for his health care plan.
I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women.
Senator Klobuchar, my colleague specifically asked you if you could name the president of Mexico, and your response was no.
Yes.
You're literally in part of the committee that's overseeing these things, and we're not able to speak to literally the first thing about the politics of the country to ourselves.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
Let's just be clear. Missing a name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on. And I just think this is unfair.
America is running out of time, and this is our only chance to defeat Donald Trump.
Joining me now from Las Vegas inside the spin room is Caitlin Huey-Burns, Lynda Tran, and Nikole Killion. Nikole is a CBS News correspondent. Lynda is a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. And Caitlin is a CBSN political reporter. All right, welcome to you all. This was a fiery debate, to say the least. I want to get all of your initial takeaways. Lynda, starting with you.
Well, look, if I had to summarize tonight's performances and the debate overall, I would take it down to 3 words. Does it matter? I mean, in an environment where what you're hoping to do is deliver enough of a performance to raise resources, you might say that Mike Bloomberg did not deliver, but it won't matter because he has the resources to get all the way through to Super Tuesday. We also saw Vice President Joe Biden deliver what I would say was his strongest performance in the entire series of Democratic debates. But again, was it too little, too late? Does it matter, and will it shake things up? And then finally, Bernie Sanders took a little bit of fire, but I don't think it did anything to dampen the enthusiasm that he's seen behind him or to change up the momentum that he's got at his back right now, the wind that he's got at his back. And so I think that ultimately it's going to be the same kind of folks at the top and the folks at the bottom, the moderates who had, as we saw, they went head-to-head, toe-to-toe, and tried to really differentiate themselves. I'm not sure that actually made a big difference either. Doesn't matter.
Caitlin?
Elaine, we are in the spin room, so we're not actually at the debate site, but I can imagine that they sent in like a fire hose or a mop to clean up or wipe down whatever happened in there. It was fiery. It was bloody. This was a real turning point, I think, in this campaign, insofar as you saw what a circular firing squad actually looks like. Everybody took attacks on everybody. So I'm not sure, to your point, which is a great one, what this really does. I think if you're looking for what a couple of these candidates that we've been talking about were trying to get out of tonight, we were all looking at Michael Bloomberg going into tonight. Could he live up to the kind of campaign that he has been projecting on the airwaves, on social media? We got to pull back the curtain a little bit tonight, and I'm wondering, whether those who have been supporting him in the polls liked what they saw, if they thought that tonight matched up with what they've seen on the airwaves. And I don't think that's quite the match. I think Bernie Sanders, who would have gone into tonight with the biggest target on his back had it not been for Michael Bloomberg, did come out, I think, relatively unscathed, because you had people like Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar really fighting it out for that moderate lane. Joe Biden, I think we were looking to see whether he would be eclipsed by Michael Bloomberg, whether Michael Bloomberg could make that case that he is better equipped to take on Donald Trump than Joe Biden. And I think Joe Biden kind of tried successfully, I think, made his case tonight as well.
Nikole, what about you?
Well, look, I think what stood out to me is what's really at stake, to use three different words, right? And I do think this debate lived up to expectations in terms of how important it was for all of these candidates to deliver. The headline going into this debate was Michael Bloomberg, he qualified, what's going to happen? But quite frankly, all of these candidates had skin in the game, and that's why I think you saw all of them coming out extremely hard. Obviously, Bloomberg was a key focus and a target, but certainly Bernie Sanders had something to prove, being in that front-runner status. I think that's one reason why we saw Elizabeth Warren really come out hard against all the candidates on stage tonight, because she's slipping, and her candidacy is at stake right now. Joe Biden also trying to stay relevant, and as Caitlin mentioned, you had Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar coming off of this momentum from Iowa and New Hampshire, also trying to keep that momentum going. So really all of these candidates had skin in the game. The other thing that stood out to me, too, is also the messaging that some of these candidates had to remind the voters, particularly voters of color, why they matter. Keep in mind, Nevada, much different in demographics than Iowa and New Hampshire, and many of these candidates tonight really made a point of trying to remind voters about that, whether that was taking Mike Bloomberg to task over his comments about stop and frisk, over his comments about redlining. Another part of the debate, it wasn't as sexy, but when they got into the issue of climate change, certainly we saw Biden, I believe, for instance, bringing up the impact that sometimes this disproportionately has on communities of color. Elizabeth Warren doing the same as well. So clearly trying to make sure their messages were heard, because they know that those constituencies could make a difference in their, ultimate success going forward.
All right, Nikole, Killion, Lynda, Tran, and Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you all very much. Let's bring in our panel of Molly Hooper, Leslie Sanchez, and Antjuan Seawright. Molly is a CBSN political contributor and veteran Capitol Hill reporter. Leslie is a CBS News political contributor and Republican strategist. And Antjuan is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Whew, Antjuan, I need to start with you. Thoughts on tonight?
Well, I'm still smoking. I know. Because it was really hot, and I could feel the heat coming through.
Heated fellowship, like you said.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm not surprised about tonight. At the end of the day, while conventional wisdom would have said the target would have been on Bernie Sanders' back because he is the declared front runner to this point, instead the target was clearly on Mayor Bloomberg, and not him personally per se, but his record. And he did a piss poor job of trying to defend what he should have been prepared for when he knew he was qualifying for this debate. And I'm very shocked and surprised that he did not come as prepared as he needed to, particularly on things that have been in the news and in the conversation of every particular candidate who's on that debate stage for him. I was very shocked by that. I was also shocked by the intensity from Elizabeth Warren. That was a young lady on a mission, and her mission clearly was to show that she's a fighter and she could give two flying kites what the perception may be outside of that debate stage, but she wanted to show that she can stand up to the boys, she can stand up to the best of them, and that was on full display tonight.
I want to go back to Mayor Bloomberg in a moment, but Leslie, your thoughts on tonight, what you saw on that stage?
Biggest thing, the Republican fell flat, meaning Mike Bloomberg. He did not land the way that it was anticipated. To bounce off the point of saying he should have been better prepared, but there's a kind of a common rule in presidential campaigns. It takes a candidate about 4 months to understand the cadence and the expectation of what it's like to be on a campaign trail.
4 months.
It takes about that long. Even with Barack Obama, we used to say that. And if you go back and just Google the number of gaffes that Biden has, people remember this. But
school segregation in that first debate, he should have been prepared for that, right?
Oh, absolutely. But Barack Obama, I'm saying the point being that any candidate, you're only human. Any candidate, it takes time to understand, that the national media, and you kind of have this adoring effort that starts at your knees, that they say the national media, and then it's slowly moving up to your neck, in terms of the pressure. And that takes time. Yeah. So if you've been inoculated in a bubble with experts moving out mass messages and you haven't had the mano a mano, you're really going to fall flat-footed. And that's what you saw with Bloomberg.
Molly, what did you think?
I heard Antjuan say this a little bit earlier tonight. I think it actually did a lot for Joe Biden. This is probably the debate that I've seen him. He was actually on fire. He was focused. He was joining in sort of the pylon.
Parrying.
Exactly. And that's one thing that really struck me about this, because it's sort of like he had this purpose. He was part of this team effort to really go after Mike Bloomberg, and he did. I mean, especially when it came to the women, the non-disclosure agreements. And he was for the most part succinct and really got his message out. I don't know how much it will resonate or whether it will matter per se, but I was struck by that.
Yeah. Well, there's two things about that. One, we did not feel the external pressure from the Republicans and Donald Trump for the Vice President Biden. So there was less on that. And then there were less attacks from him being known as a front runner from his fellow candidates on the stage leading up to this debate because of the first two contests, which would have said to me, conventional wisdom would have been attack the current front runner because you want to replace and erase his status. That did not happen. Instead, people went after the 80-pound gorilla in the room, Mayor Bloomberg, only because of his resources. And again, I understand the technical aspect you bring about the 4 months preparation, but he's been having to deal with stop and frisk stuff for a very long time. Yeah. Worst case scenario, you have a definitive answer and push out your policy agenda of how you're going to change the perception about me as a person and my candidacy. I was looking for more of that per se than changing the temperature totally.